There are people who give until there's nothing left, who say yes when everything inside them is screaming no, who wear kindness like armor, but underneath, they're collapsing. If you've ever felt invisible in your own life, like you exist only to serve everyone else's needs, this might be the most important thing you hear today, because what looks like kindness on the surface often hides something much darker underneath. You see them everywhere. The friend who never asks for anything. The co-worker who stays late to help everyone but themselves. The family member who absorbs every problem, every complaint, every crisis without a single word about their own pain. On the outside, they seem like saints. But if you look closer, really closer, you'll notice something strange. Their eyes are tired. Their smiles don't quite reach the place smiles are supposed to go. And when the room empties, when everyone they've helped walks away satisfied, they sit alone with a feeling they can never quite name. It's not that they don't want to be kind. They do. But somewhere along the way, kindness stopped being a choice and became a prison. A way to survive. A method to avoid the one thing they fear most, which is being truly seen. Because if people saw them, the real them, without the mask of endless giving, would anyone stay? That question haunts them in the quiet moments. It follows them into sleep. And every morning, they wake up and put the mask back on, because it's the only way they know how to exist in a world that feels too sharp, too loud, too ready to reject them if they stop performing. This kind of kindness has a name, even though most people don't know it. Psychologists call it fawning. It's one of the lesser-known trauma responses, sitting right next to fight, flight, and freeze. When a person learns early in life that their safety depends on pleasing others, when love feels conditional and approval has to be earned through service, fawning becomes the strategy. Not a conscious choice, but a deeply wired response. The nervous system learns to detect even the smallest signs of displeasure in others and immediately moves to fix it, soothe it, erase it. The fawner becomes hyper-aware of everyone's emotions except their own. And here's where it gets complicated, because this type of kindness actually works, at least on the surface. People do like them. They get praised. They're called dependable, selfless, generous. They become the person everyone turns to. But what no one sees is the cost. What no one realizes is that beneath the surface, there's a person slowly disappearing. Their wants, their needs, their opinions, all of it gets shoved down, ignored, treated as less important than everyone else's comfort. They learn to read rooms like survival depends on it, because in a way, it does. Not physical survival, but emotional survival. The survival of being accepted, being needed, being allowed to stay. The worst part is how invisible it all becomes. To the outside world, they look fine, better than fine. They look like they have it all together. But inside, there's this quiet, constant hum of exhaustion, a sense that they're always on, always performing, always one mistake away from being abandoned. They give and give and give, not because it feels good, but because stopping feels impossible. Because if they stop being useful, if they stop being the person who fixes everything and asks for nothing, what's left? Who are they without the role they've been playing their entire life? And then the resentment starts. It doesn't come all at once. It seeps in slowly, like water through a crack. At first, it's just a small irritation when someone asks for another favor. Then it grows into a quiet anger when yet another person takes without offering anything in return. But here's the thing, they can't express it, because expressing anger, setting boundaries, saying no, all of that feels like betrayal. Not betrayal of others, but betrayal of the version of themselves they've spent years building. The kind version, the good version, the version that doesn't make waves or cause problems or ask for too much. So they swallow it, they push it down, they tell themselves they're being dramatic, that they should be grateful people need them, that it's selfish to want something in return. But resentment doesn't disappear just because you ignore it. It builds, it festers, it turns into something heavy and dark that sits in the chest and makes everything feel harder. They start to feel tired all the time, not just physically, but emotionally, like they're carrying a weight no one else can see. And still, they keep going, because stopping would mean facing the thing they've been running from all along. What they're running from is the fear that they're not enough, that without the constant giving, without the endless acts of service, they have no value. This fear is old. It comes from a time when love felt uncertain, when approval was something they had to earn, when being good wasn't about feeling good, but about staying safe. Maybe it was a parent who only showed affection when they behaved perfectly. Maybe it was a relationship where their worth was measured by how much they sacrificed. Maybe it was a friendship that only existed as long as they played the role of therapist, helper, fixer. Whatever the origin, the message was the same. You are only valuable when you're useful. And that message becomes the blueprint. It shapes how they move through the world. It dictates their relationships, their choices, their sense of self. They become people who exist in relation to others, never as whole, separate individuals with their own needs and desires. Their identity gets tangled up in what they do for people, not in who they actually are. And the most painful part, they're often surrounded by people who have no idea. Friends and family who genuinely believe they're happy, who assume the constant giving is just their personality, not a survival mechanism. The truth stays hidden, locked away, because admitting it would mean admitting that everything they've built is based on something fragile and false. Here's what makes this even more complicated. The people they attract start to reflect the pattern. When you operate from a place of endless giving, you tend to draw in people who are comfortable taking. Not because they're bad people, but because the dynamic makes sense to them. They learn that this person will always say yes, will always be available, will always put their needs last. And over time, the relationship becomes unbalanced. One person gives and the other takes, and neither questions it because it's just how things are. But for the giver, every interaction reinforces the belief that their value lies only in what they provide. They become trapped in a cycle that feels impossible to break. The boundaries they need to set feel like walls they're not allowed to build, because boundaries, real boundaries, require a belief that your needs matter as much as anyone else's. And when you've spent years learning that your needs don't matter, that they're inconvenient or selfish or too much, setting boundaries feels like an act of violence against yourself. So they don't. They stay in relationships that drain them. They accept treatment that hurts them. They continue to give even when they're running on empty. And all the while, they tell themselves this is just who they are. This is just what kindness looks like. But it's not kindness. Not really. True kindness comes from a place of fullness, not depletion. It's a choice made freely, not a compulsion driven by fear. When kindness is rooted in the fear of rejection, when it's performed to control how others see you, when it's used as a shield against your own worthlessness, it stops being kindness and becomes something else. It becomes a transaction, an unspoken deal where you give in exchange for acceptance, for love, for the right to exist in someone else's space without being cast out. And transactions, no matter how they're dressed up, always leave someone feeling shortchanged. The tragedy is that they often don't realize what's happening until something breaks. Maybe it's a friendship that finally asks too much. Maybe it's a moment of burnout so complete they can't get out of bed. Maybe it's a quiet realization in the middle of the night that they don't even know what they like anymore, what they want, who they are when no one's watching. The break can be big or small, but it's always a crack in the facade, a moment where the performance falters and the truth underneath becomes impossible to ignore. And that truth is terrifying, because it means everything they've built, all the relationships, all the approval, all the ways people see them, it's all based on a version of themselves that isn't real. It's a version they created to survive, to be loved, to avoid the pain of rejection. But it's not them, the real them, the one with opinions and boundaries and needs, has been buried so deep they're not even sure it still exists. And now they're faced with a choice. Keep going, keep performing, keep sacrificing until there's nothing left. Or stop. Risk everything. Risk the relationships, the approval, the identity they've clung to. Risk being seen as they actually are and finding out if anyone will stay. This is the climax. The moment where the cost of continuing becomes greater than the fear of stopping. It's not dramatic, there's no big scene. It's just a quiet, internal shift. A realization that they can't keep living like this. That the kindness they've been offering isn't sustainable. That they've built a web of connections based on a false self. And that web has become a trap. They're stuck in it, and everyone around them is stuck in it too, even if no one realizes it. Because the relationships they've formed aren't with them. They're with the mask, the version that never complains, never asks, never takes up space. And if they remove the mask, what's left? The fear is that the answer is nothing. That underneath the performance, there's no one worth knowing. But that's the fear talking. That's the old voice, the one that learned to equate worth with usefulness. The truth, the one that's hard to see after years of conditioning, is that they were always enough. Before the giving, before the performing, before the endless acts of service, they were enough. The problem was never that they lacked value. The problem was that they were taught to believe their value had to be earned. And that belief became the foundation for everything. So what does it look like to break free? It starts with the smallest, hardest word, no. Not no to everything, but no to the things that drain them. No to the requests that come with no regard for their time or energy. No to the relationships that only take. At first, it feels impossible. Saying no feels like ripping out a part of themselves. The guilt is overwhelming. The fear of disappointing people, of being seen as selfish, of losing the approval they've worked so hard to maintain. It's almost too much to bear. But they say it anyway, and something shifts. The shift is subtle. At first, it doesn't feel like relief. It feels like loss. People react. Some get confused. Some get angry. Some drift away. And that hurts more than anything because it confirms the fear. They were only valued for what they gave, but others stay. And those are the ones who matter. The ones who don't need them to be perfect or selfless or endlessly available. The ones who see them as a person, not a service. And slowly, painfully, they start to rebuild. Not the mask, but themselves. The version that was buried. The one with needs and wants and boundaries. They learn that kindness doesn't have to mean self-sacrifice, that they can care for others without erasing themselves in the process. That saying no doesn't make them cruel, it makes them honest. They start to notice their own feelings again, the ones they'd been ignoring for so long. They start to ask themselves what they want, not what everyone else wants from them. And it's hard. It's so much harder than just going back to the old way. But it's also real in a way the performance never was. The new definition of kindness becomes this. Kindness is integrity. It's honoring yourself first, so that what you give to others is genuine, not coerced. It's offering help because you want to, not because you're afraid of what will happen if you don't. It's recognizing that your needs matter, that your time matters, that your energy matters. And it's understanding that real relationships, the kind worth having, are built on truth, not transactions. They're built on two people showing up as they are, not as they think they need to be to earn love. And here's the hardest truth of all. The people who truly care about them don't need them to be perfect. They don't need the endless giving, or the constant availability, or the mask of niceness. They just need them to be real, to show up as they are, messy and tired and imperfect, to ask for help sometimes, to admit when they're struggling, to take up space without apologizing for it. That's the kindness that actually matters. Not the kind that comes from fear, but the kind that comes from wholeness, from knowing that you're enough, just as you are, and offering from that place instead of from emptiness. True strength isn't in saying yes to everything. It's in having the courage to say no when you need to. It's in recognizing that you can't pour from an empty cup, that self-care isn't selfish, that protecting your peace is not only okay but necessary. It's in understanding that people who love you won't punish you for having boundaries. And if they do, they're not your people. It's brutal, that realization. But it's also freeing, because once you stop trying to earn love through service, once you stop performing kindness as a defense mechanism, you create space for something real, for connections based on who you are, not what you do. The journey from people pleaser to whole person isn't quick. It's not a single moment of clarity that fixes everything. It's a series of small, terrifying choices. Choosing yourself when it feels selfish. Setting a boundary when it feels cruel. Walking away from a relationship that only works when you're not really there. Each choice chips away at the old belief system, the one that said you're only valuable when you're useful. And each choice builds something new, a sense of self that isn't dependent on other people's approval, a kind of kindness that doesn't cost you everything. And eventually, something beautiful happens. They start to feel lighter, not because their life gets easier, but because they're no longer carrying the weight of everyone else's expectations. They start to breathe deeper, sleep better, laugh without the underlying current of exhaustion. They discover parts of themselves they'd forgotten existed, hobbies they used to love, opinions they'd been hiding, dreams they'd set aside because they didn't seem important compared to everyone else's needs. And they realize that this version of themselves is who they were meant to be all along. The people who matter, the ones who see them as more than a resource. Those relationships deepen because now there's honesty, now there's reciprocity, now there's space for both people to exist fully without one always shrinking to make room for the other. And yes, some relationships end. Some people can't handle the shift, can't adapt to a dynamic where they're no longer the center of attention. And that's okay. Painful, but okay. Because what's left is real. What's left is sustainable. What's left is a life built on truth instead of fear. They learn to recognize the difference between healthy kindness and the kind that was slowly killing them. Healthy kindness feels good. It flows naturally. It doesn't leave you resentful or drained or wondering why you said yes again. It comes from a place of abundance, not scarcity. It's the kind of kindness that refills you as much as it gives to others. And when it stops feeling good, when it starts to feel like an obligation or a trap, That's the signal. That's the moment to pause, to check in, to ask yourself if you're giving because you want to, or because you're afraid of what will happen if you don't. The other thing they learn is that it's okay to be imperfect, to disappoint people sometimes, to prioritize their own needs even when it makes someone else uncomfortable. Because the alternative, the endless self-sacrifice, doesn't make them a good person. It makes them a ghost, a hollow version of who they could be if they gave themselves the same care they give everyone else. And life is too short to spend it being a ghost, too short to exist only in service of other people's comfort, too short to never ask for what you need because you're afraid the answer will be no. So if you see yourself in this, if you recognize the pattern, if you've been the person who gives until there's nothing left, know this: you're not broken. You're not too sensitive or too needy or asking for too much. You're a person who learned to survive by being what others needed, and that's not your fault. But it doesn't have to be your future. You can unlearn it. You can set boundaries. You can choose yourself without guilt. You can offer kindness that doesn't cost you everything. And the people who truly love you will not only accept it, they'll celebrate it. Because they want you to be whole, not empty. They want you to be real, not perfect. The hidden psychology of people who are too kind is this: it's not really about kindness at all. It's about fear. Fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, fear of being seen as less than. And that fear creates a pattern that looks like generosity but feels like drowning. Breaking the pattern doesn't mean becoming selfish. It means becoming honest. It means recognizing that you deserve the same care you give everyone else. And it means understanding that real kindness, the kind that lasts, starts with being kind to yourself. If you've been that person, the one who disappears into the needs of others, it's time to come back. It's time to remember that you matter, not because of what you do for people, but because you exist. You don't have to earn your place in the world. You don't have to perform to be loved. You just have to show up as you are and trust that the right people will see you. And they will. Not the mask, but you. The real you, with all your needs and boundaries and beautiful, messy humanity. And if this resonated with you, if you saw yourself in these words, drop a comment below. Share your experience. Let others know they're not alone in this. Because the more we talk about it, the more we shine light on these patterns, the easier it becomes to break free. If you found value in this video, hit that like button and subscribe for more content that digs into the deeper layers of human psychology. Thanks for being here, and remember, true kindness begins with honoring yourself.